Just kidding. Hi, everyone. I'm Annette Wittenberger, joined by Joe Palacios, and you're listening to the Veteran Lifestyle Magazine podcast, where we share raw, real conversations with veterans, spouses, and changemakers navigating life after service. From mental health to career shifts, advocacy of entrepreneurship, this podcast is your front row seat to stories that inform, inspire, and empower our community. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to bring up our special guest today, and it is Mr. Scott Neal. Thank you very
Yay!
much.
Thank you all very much for having me. It's a happy
Absolutely.
Thursday, and I'm excited.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to go ahead and bring up your bio if anybody could read it. Unfortunately, I had to shorten it because it is very extensive.
Ish.
It's quite the story, but I'm going to just do a little bit and then we can go on to the rest. But let's see. Well, let's see here. Okay. So you are the president of American Freedom Distillery and a
Yep.
co-founder of Horse Soldier Bourbon, which
Yep.
is a premium American whiskey brand that I actually tasted, built on legendary service, resilience, and brotherhood. You founded this in 2016 with a group of friends and retired Green Berets. And so the story that we were just talking about a little bit before I had to cut him off was it's a powerful story of some of the first special forces teams that deployed to Afghanistan following the attacks of 9/11. And this elite unit was later nicknamed the Horse Soldiers. So let's get into the rest of this.
Hey.
Like I said, when I met your counterpart Will Sumners over a year ago here at Fort Hood, I had the honor and privilege of tasting them and then hearing about the story, listening about the movie. But I wanted to ask you this question now. With Horse Soldier Bourbon being born from a brotherhood forged in war, how do you carry that same spirit of trust, grit, and loyalty into business today?
Well, but I went backwards now and kind of went through some MBA classes because this really was a business baptism by fire. None of us knew what was going on. We just knew that we like to hang out. And in special forces, what's unique is you're typically with one team throughout your career. So I was only on two special forces teams for 17 years. So that's a long time to get to know each other. So the ones that fit and gel together, they last. The ones that don't, they're dysfunctional. And it's the same in business. So now fast forward, you've been friends all these years, your wives know each other, your kids play together, they have their own lives. Obviously, we still like to get together, and we found a passion for going to craft distilleries. And I think it's the same for anybody that has this kind of hobby, whether you're a quilter or you're a hot rod or you like motorcycles, you find these little groups getting back together. Well, what was unique is we had this past, which some people at the time knew nothing about. And then this turned into an opportunity that then turned into a business that's now, a 50 state bourbon, empire, as I like to say.
I mean, I love how you guys have that family unit together, that camaraderie, and I didn't really understand that until I deployed with my troops to Iraq. And in Iraq, we had soldiers that built us an extended version of our talk. And so we had some plywood. They built a little area for us to sit, and we smoked cigars. And I mean, of course, we couldn't drink, but well, so so I learned how to drink or smoke cigars in the palace in Iraq, and I thought it was really kind of cool, to just be there with my soldiers, with my commander, and just have that. Let's not think about what's really going on here, kind of thing, before we go on a convoy. Let's just sit here and just live. And it was just really kind of a cool thing.
Well, if you become a student of history, which I think a lot of soldiers do, you start when you're young, you see things differently. When I watched Rambo for the first time, I saw big knives, a guy alone, unafraid, jumping out of trees, killing pigs, running from the law, surviving in any measure. And now when I watch Rambo, I see the end where you've got a confused veteran who is just trying to see his friend, and he really doesn't fit in. So, the battlefield, everybody wants to hear about the battle, but nobody really talks about the fondness of camaraderie and just hanging out with each other and getting to know each other even more than your families know about you. And so why wouldn't you want a business or be a part of that same bond on the battlefield and put it into a business? And that's where we're very fortunate is we found a way to stay friends and with puppies. I have my puppy too. And turn that into something that benefits the economy and gives us something of value. Nobody's given us money because we were a bunch of old Green Berets or were, part of this notable story. We get something because we have a product, it's really good, customers can buy it, and they feel loyalty to it. That is how we feed our families, and that's what we get to talk about all over the country.
I absolutely love that. There's one of my notes when you were talking about was like you said that you guys went out and you just did stuff that you were passionate about. I think there's like this false idea about how you need to design your life in business or whatever, and that false thing is that you gotta that you can't find a passion or a tribe and then bring that together and kind of design the way you want to live. And I love that you guys took that brotherhood and then that thing that you continue to build after and then said, let's design a life that allows us to enjoy what we love and help others. That's literally one of the reasons why I think our team works. The thing is that we found that common purpose, and that's hard to stick to. When you start to grow, when you start to see things, it really is.
Yeah.
But what I love is that you have that core belief and that core strength, and you guys carry that forward. That being said, how do you guys overcome those challenges of growth when you guys really kind of started to expand out and do more with your bourbon and grow and all that kind of stuff?
I think we have to learn again to be uncomfortable. And uncomfortable in business means you're growing too fast or you're under resourced. Now, luckily in special forces, our character is developed and our resources. Some people think we're given anything we're wanted. We weren't. We had to become very clever and very resourceful. And then we're overlaid a very wicked problem that most can't see. And so you overlay that in business, it takes a lot of guts, right? And a lot of discipline financially and a lot of adherence to the plan. So when things aren't going right, and if you look at the economy today with all this messaging and uncertainty and all of this stuff, you have to constantly communicate with each other. Are we on the right path? And then once you call the play, you break the huddle and you go execute. That gives us the advantage over some of our competitors. So when I talk to people about transition, one, everybody's going to go through it, whether you're a general or a private or a sergeant or a warrant officer, it's going to happen. But those that embrace you and guide you and pull you through it, there has to be another side. And for us, that other side was starting our own business together. And so once again, we were talking earlier about World War II. These folks came home and they went back to their small communities, and some became janitors, and some started a lawn company, and some started a construction company, but they started trading business amongst each other because they had that trust and they built this great economy. How do we now get American servicemen and women, veterans, into the economy? And then starting to work with each other and trade business, right? And choose each other's products and services. That is probably the best thing we could do now.
Thank you so much for that, Scott.
Oh, I'm trying to go. There's so many questions that I want to ask. But I want to go back really quick to The bottle. So
Yeah.
some of your bottles were
hmm
forged from the steel recovered from the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
What was the emotional weight of that decision, and what message did you want, or do you hope?
Yep. So in the very beginning, we had very, very little money. And as you know, you have a brand you're building and you have a bottle which will identify you. Well, currently, if I'm a craft distillery, I can choose from Chinese glass, which is very cheap, but they all look the same. So if you looked on anybody's bar and you see some of the bottles that are the same, it's very generic. And we said, hey, we want to buy American. And so we went to an American glass company. They took us through the foundry. At the very end, they said, we'd love to make your own bottle. And it costs $60,000 for a mold. And we just looked at each other. We didn't have 60,000, but then they said you need 7 of them. So what happens when you start to laugh? You've ever been in such a tight situation that you just bust out laughing because I wish they would have said that beforehand because we wouldn't even have come. It cost us a lot of money. And I said, well, what is that bottle mold made out of that costs that kind of money? And they told me the type of steel, but then in the back of our minds, we started recalling that we were given small pieces of World Trade Center steel and we would bury it on the battlefield in the early days. And also, if you know that image on the front bottle is the statue at Ground Zero. So we got to know the Port Authority and those folks really well. And it was the same steel used in construction for the World Trade Center. So I just threw out there negotiation 101. What if I were to trade you some steel? Could you make the molds and could we get a discount? And that is literally how it happened. It wasn't a marketing gimmick. It wasn't Madison Avenue saying, you know what you ought to do as former Green Berets, you ought to think of this. No, it was on the spot, just like if you were in Iraq and Afghanistan, went and held a little bit of a tribal meeting, and it was more about trust and getting to know each other and then finding a solution. And we found one. And so every bottle is hot molten glass. It goes into the mold closes, and air nozzle comes in and it forms the glass. And on our bottle label, it says forged in fire, just like we were. So there's a lot of things that went into this business, which is truly organic. It wasn't because we were famous and then a bunch of ignited minds used that to create this. We Every decision, every day about everything came from us.
That's pretty darn incredible.
There you go. That's America. But we weren't unique, right? Nobody knew the story about us at the time.
Right.
It was in the moment you're fighting for yourself and your business. What can we do? And we forget that in America, things sometimes are very transactional. You go buy a car, maybe you get $500 off. But if you're overseas, you can haggle, you can hustle, you can walk away, you walk back, you have a third cup of tea. You know what I mean? You can get to a solution that works for everybody. And that's probably one of our business principles is everybody needs to hurt a little bit in business, but at the end, we're creating business together.
No, I wrote adaptability is what you said. But also just here at the end, one of the things that really stood out was that you said that we just were there, and when something came up, we fixed it. And for me, because I don't know if you've seen any of the previous podcasts or anything that I've been on and done, Scott, but for me, it's always about like trying to find ways to be present in the time that you're in, and like and how that so applies to so many aspects of our life, right? Not just business, but spiritually, relationship wise, friend wise, like how we present ourselves is to be present. And that's how we solve, that's how it sounded like you solve problems. And all of that, because you were able to do that. So with all of the chaos, how do you find presence in all the other aspects of your life?
If you were to talk to my wife, I have more flutters every day than a hummingbird wing. In other words, when you're purpose driven and focused, you accomplish things. So obviously, part of our military was looking strategic in the future. Our business plan was written for 100 years, and we're only 8 years into our first 25-year plan. So every day when we leave and have a conversation, we know our goal. And we have the discipline of writing down, recording things, being over prepared. And a very good mentor of mine, General Miller, he said, walk into a meeting with knowledge dominance. And what he means is you know more about the subject than the person presenting it to you. So when you get there, you're making a personal connection and you're getting to the solution faster. If you walk in there, like if we, I was underprepared when we went into that meeting about the bottle and the mold, right? I was surprised. I was taken aback, but I had to react quickly like an ambush, a business ambush. And luckily I used other techniques of negotiation and interpersonal skills. I don't know where I'm going or getting at by being present, but be prepared when you are present is one.
Yeah.
Be present because each thing you do as a business owner deserves your full attention, right? If you pass off and you over delegate and it gets watered down, it has implications later on that you have to try to solve. So trying to be present in business is one. Now we got to talk about the balance of life and be present for your family and yourself as well. And that's probably been a challenge for a while. We were over invested in this business and how to then realize and backtrack and get the family aligned and get yourself aligned in your health aspects as well.
That being said, because I think that's a struggle for a lot of new entrepreneurs, right? Like, and they always, I think everybody gets in the hustle, like they want to hustle, and we all do. Like, I mean, you were saying too, like you had to backtrack.
Yeah.
If you could, and I know that's an if, and we always try not to deal in the if, but for me, it's more of like, how do we help people stop treading water? Because like there's a theme that Better Lifestyle Magazine and all of our thing, and there will be an announcement soon with the collaborative effort on this. But you go backtrack to where because we want to raise tides for all people. Right? That's the idea in business, right? You want to raise the tide, and if you're already in the business and you're in a boat, the idea is that your boat lifts. But I think a lot of times we forget about the people that are still treading water. Maybe there's some leaks in their boats. Well, our idea has constantly been like, how do we provide them the right guidance, resources, avenues so that they can not be treading water while the tides are rising? We can kind of do it together. So not see, I was all into that whole thing. I forgot the tenets of but what I was getting at was like, so if you could backtrack, what lessons could you give someone to say, hey, here's the balancing ways to focus really on your business, but not ostracize all of the relationships? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah. So myself personally, before we started this business, I was trying a lot of things. I was juggling, balancing. Maybe I sold backpacks and I sold shirts. In other words, you didn't know where to grasp. So you were, there's a difference between motion and movement. I was just in motion. I was in circles, running left and right. I was trying to live in this fantasy world of entrepreneurship. I could go online and for $29.95 start a website. I didn't know what to do because I wasn't focused. And so I decided to do what they say and burn the boats. I got rid of everything and focused on one thing. That one thing became Horse Soldier Bourbon and American Freedom Distillery. That one thing 8 years later gives us, 3 restaurants, a production facility. You know what I mean? That one thing, that North Star on that compass. When you stare at your compass, if you ever remember going through, orientation, right? You can look up at the stars and walk so far, but when you finally get to the point, you got to stare at your compass to finally go in the right direction. So when I go backwards, I wish I would have started this 5 years sooner, because I'd have been You know what I mean? Even further on the North Star of where I think we were meant to be. So next is find a mentor. I found somebody that was an older veteran that transitioned, created a very profitable business, exited it, and I said, that's the profile. So in service, we find a colonel, if you're a lieutenant colonel, that takes you to the next level, a sergeant that finds a sergeant first class, and you say, tell me what I need to do. How can I be a better leader? So I found a mentor, and that became my business partner, John Coco. And he cut through the noise and said, you're wasting your time. Okay. And he focused me because he had experience. And he also had empathy for where I was in my own personal transition. Said, I understand where you're at. First, we're going to go to Yellowstone, and we're not going to think about anything but what this morning's going to bring to us. So he was that Obi-Wan,
Right.
you know what I mean? That taught me, too many mind. And then we discovered that we had all of this inside of us, and really this business brought it out, and he layered expertise, and we're here today because of that.
No, that's awesome. And you know what's funny is I think sometimes we find like one of the things we don't realize where that mentor is. Like it could be.
Mhm.
I think sometimes we always think it's like you said in the military. It was actually for me. It was the case. It was always and what was weird is like that big mentor was always somebody outside of my direct chain of
Mhm.
command, right? Just because of the nature of how I am, I always had conflict within my chain of command, and it was
Yep.
always outside. There was like a gunnery sergeant or a captain that was like, that dude's an operator, and they would mentor me and they would kind of get me into a place like Gunnery Sergeant Bemis. I'm gonna have to mention his name. Like he was my vehicle commander in the initial push. I need to get. I'm not trying to get emotional. I trained with our scouts, right? I trained to work.
Yeah.
And then somehow, again, normally in my chain of command, there's always kind of like because I'm not there yet loud, whatever. But the guy I worked with him offline, and he's like, "Hey, you're gonna get off."
I think it's because just like Annette knows, sometimes you don't listen to your wives. You got to get advice outside the relationship. So, I knew for myself, I thought I knew what I knew. And then somebody outside comes in and says, let me add some more. Okay. Let me show you a view. And the ones that you're drawn to, um, they're there for you. And so my story is about realizing I was at a point where I was trying a lot of things. I knew I wanted to live the American dream. I didn't know how to. And I finally broke it down into its elements. And I said, let's find a mentor, and let me just open up and be vulnerable enough for them to guide me. Okay. And sometimes you can't do that when you're in that organization because you are the leader or you are here, and you need that parallel off to the side. It's a phenomenon in business I get to talk about why the sergeant and the lieutenant, or the first sergeant, right, and the captain, or the colonel and the sergeant major is so effective in the military is because you have this relationship together, right? Where it's almost like your mom and pop, where they're kind of pillow partners and they can discuss things for the day and argue a tad bit. But when it comes time to wake up in the morning, they have a family direction. So in business, um, I think hiring veterans, you'll get that benefit if you create the right team and the right business structure. So today, we benefit from our past where we realize we have mission, focus, structure, right? And we're driven. On the other side, we overlay that against competitors, which, other brands are not my enemy, but I treat them like they are. What are they doing? What is their, what can they do to unseat me? Am I pursuing somebody? So the number one thing that got us together was taking all of this motion and creating movement. And that's what I recommend to other veterans is start going in a direction, find a mentor, cover your gaps of knowledge through that mentor or self-educate, and then get into it. Don't be afraid. You can still do things with very little resources. Resources will come. That's not the problem. It's knowing how to ask for it, how to protect your business, because somebody will give you too much, like a bad pawn shop, right? All of a sudden, you're 38% interest on a VCR. And, that's where we became wiser together. I see everybody giggling at my old reference.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
You know what I mean? When you're broke private and you're like, ah, man, for small payments, I can get this nice thing.
And I put it in the chat, and
It's taking notes.
I just you just learn so much, and this is what I love about amplifying voices, because if people are watching and they just like pick up these nuggets, and then there's a message for everybody.
Well, I think venues like yours now have really changed things. In the beginning, YouTube was, how to fix a washer and dryer. Then you had a TED Talk for a while and you were exposed to some ideas. Your brain was like, I didn't know that was an idea. Holy crap, I get it. And now for the veterans community, myself personally, I loved service. I'm also glad I'm done with my service. It's time for the next chapter of my life. So I don't dwell, even though I got a brand that kind of lingers with identity back there, but that's just enough. I think it's time for veterans to own their veteranness, right?
Yeah.
Be proud of it, but get in the economy. We defended the American way and idea for a reason, and now we get to enjoy that just as much as anybody else, and you can. So if you're lingering in your past identity, you should address it. If you're falling behind your peers, it's okay. You'll be on an escalator in no time. You'll bypass the stairs of the global climb. Next, this country was built on sharp, critical thinkers, a little outside the box, and has a different view of doing things. I think this economy needs those kind of people, right? And now how, as veterans, and to be a business mentor, to teach others how to get resources, how to focus their mind and their business towards a direction. A hedgehog, I make something and I sell it for profit.
Yeah.
That's it. Every day we wake up saying, are we making something? Can I lower the cost this way? Can I make profit and make more? That's it. And how do we amplify those critical veteran voices on the positive side? And I think they need a megaphone as much as those that just talk about, the injuries of war and everything else. We can address those.
For sure. So you hit a topic that I really do look. I think we can do an awareness of all the things, but I think at this point I've recognized, like, regardless, there are more veterans already transitioned. There are more veterans already in the world. And really what we should be focusing on is how do we as a veteran community amplify as the ones that are doing the right things, instead of raising our fists and saying the government needs to do more, the DOD needs to do. It's big. Look, we're going to celebrate we just going to celebrate the Army's 250th, and now we're going to celebrate the Marine Corps' 250th.
What? Here we go. Army was first. That's all I got to say. No. I'll be in DC this weekend because I want to see a big parade. I want to be that citizen admiring our military in a big parade. Number two is I'll be at Ton Tavern when they reopen for the Marine Corps' 250th, and we're actually working on a bottle for them. I want to celebrate again. I want small town parades and fireworks and VFWs and Jeeps driving by and your kids getting a crappy 10-cent hot dog. If I look backwards and I say, what made me feel young, innocent, patriotic, and believe in this country? And those were the simple things of small town America. Now, back to your thing, veterans, it's time for this generation of veterans to take the baton and become the next greatest generation. We have all the power to do that. right? And
Yeah.
I'm very leery against organizations and individuals that keep us stuck in the muck of transition and um, needed of the government. If I told you I could teach you how to make $5,000 a month, or I could teach you how to make a better claim in your VA to get $200 a month, where's that message? This, and I'll leave it with this because I know we're all over the place because there's so much always to discuss. Is on 9/11, which I think born this generation, right? The Department of Defense budget was $300 billion. The VA's was $100 billion. Today, the VA budget is $300 billion. The country is given resources, right, to help veterans. Now, we need access to those and clear those things, but veterans will be the most value to this generation post service by getting in the economy and creating even more wealth. And what I mean by that is we'll hire more veterans typically. We will self police those that are a little bit aiming down by saying, no, 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 turn this way, right? Let's get you the treatment. Let's get here. I know where to go. You need to have some discipline and focus on that. But then again, get into the economy, right? We won't need all of that assistance if we are assisting each other in the economy through our businesses. Just my personal thoughts.
No, for sure. The only I just don't. I 100% agree that there is a difference between what you said. Right? Like, hey, I'll give you we can figure a way to cheat this system. That's basically what certain things are. Let's figure a way to cheat the system to give you money that you didn't necessarily earn. But I don't want it to be confused with don't apply for the help that you need.
Yeah.
For the things that you actually got, right? Like for the injury that you legitimately hurt, the traumatic experience that caused you to have crazy nightmares. Take care of those. Make sure that is taken care of. But at the same time, I 100% on the other side agree that there are so many of us out here in the world doing amazing in our. Well, I still think transition, but for me, transition is not just military. There's constant transitions in our life. We're always in transition, growth, and expansion, and retraction and expansion. But at that same time, I think there's so many of us in these things that we can guide guys that your injury, bro, you 20%. That's what you rated. Let's not figure a way to make you 100% if you're not that. But let's figure a way to get you with the right job, to get you the right skills, and that's what I think we should be able to do as veterans that are already trained.
Yeah. So, my last thought on the VA. Out of that 300 billion this year, less than 1% is on education and vocational rehab. Yes, you have the GI Bill, which is general education, but we have what is going to enable those that are on a path through transition, through the physical adaptiveness that they're at right now, if they are, the mental understanding of being healthier. What could this country really do? And that is accelerating, the true spirit of America, and that's American exceptionalism and entrepreneurism and small business ownership. There are some measures Congress can do today that would give us some contracting abilities because the government is one of the biggest purchasers of services and goods, and it could do its job, right? Not only the defense side, but the VA side. So there's a program called Vets First for contracting, right? There are things like the country did for returning servicemen and women when it realized you needed to get them into the economy, get them into affordable housing, and get them educated. I think we need the right voice at the right national level that's constantly saying and being a champion for that forward-looking positiveness of that voice. If not, we're always going to be backwards. We should, we're just vets and we're misery bound and you shouldn't serve because this is how they treat you. I shun that. Next is, people right now, more money in philanthropy is given to veterans causes and issues. Nobody's telling folks where they should help, right? Or how they should help. And there's other ways than writing a check to help. And once again, if I'm a other small business owner, why not choose a veteran-owned business? You know what I mean? Where is your contribution in other measures than a fundraiser or a small check? There are other ways that we can encourage the greater uh, American public to enable and mentor and accelerate veteran-owned businesses. Where's that message? I don't see it across the horizon. Finally, back to this idea of why did you serve? What takes a group of men and women from all walks and all corners of this country, and in 8 weeks makes you march in the same direction, salute when you're supposed to, be cohesive, say the Pledge of Allegiance. You know what I mean? We can do this. What are we doing as veterans then to be the stewards of American patriotism, right? Of why we all decided to join. And sometimes why is because I was poor, or sometimes why is because of this. But yet in 8 weeks, it brought out of us, right, this appreciation for America, our ideas, its structure, so much so that we're willing to go forward in distant lands and defend, protect, get injured and die for. So I think veterans need a call to service again, right? And we need to serve the idea of why we served, right? I was just in Normandy, and you would be amazed at how millions of people would convene on D-Day, not from America, to honor that one time when we began the process of freeing Europe. So how do we bring that back to America? And as we discuss Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July, where is the veteran, the proud veteran that is always displaying, you know what I mean, this idea and patriotism and ideas worth defending? That's it. Oh, by the way, why drinking delicious bourbon?
I'm gonna order some for our next 4th of July, and I'll take a picture of it. What we normally do is I'm a big proponent of community and like joining your neighbors. So I started this idea, what I call front yard fire pits.
Yeah.
And so what we do is, and now it's kind of spread. I like the idea of, and I think veterans are good at this. And this is, I think, one of the ways that we can insert ourselves is that we have a unique perspective of what I call community, because we're willing to do these things for the person to our right and our left, which for me now, I just try to expand that to not just the guys I served with, but to my neighbors. So I try to expand that. We might have different thoughts, different opinions, different things, but we can all sit in front of this fire in my front yard, have a drink, maybe, because some people don't drink, have some food, or just have conversation. And I think that veterans have a unique ability to just kind of blank the cover of what other people look like, of what they say. We have served with so many unique people in the country. We've recognized that diversity actually is strong. We learn different things from different guys, but it becomes a team effort, right? We found a common purpose, which is to protect and defend our Constitution, our way of life, which is like our community. Like, we're here for our left and right, and our left and right expands, and I love that. I wrote in the chat that, because you were saying we need to get people to get back in there, and I think the problem is people have so listened to all like the struggles of service, but I guarantee you right now, I always say it, the juice was worth the squeeze. Like, yes,
Yeah.
there were but man, there's struggles in life that you didn't hurt.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, don't embrace the, you know what I mean, the dark clouds, right? You know, be happy under sunshine. And so that's
Yeah.
that stoic mindset of, I'm feeling bad. Well, you know what? First of all, realize you're feeling bad and demand that you should feel happy. So in the Constitution, we always talk about it, right? We're defending the Constitution. Well, there's only one small part: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right, veterans, guess where you get to exist now? The pursuit of happiness. Okay, not the gift of happiness, not the benefit of happiness, but the pursuit of it. And so messaging is so important today. We see it in social media, we see it in newscasts. We've got all these celebrities, we've got veteran celebrities. How are we getting together and reminding each other about the pursuit of happiness? And just the more you say it, the more it happens, right? It's always, the glass is half empty, the glass is half full pessimism. We got to just always include in any conversation with ourselves and somebody outside of the network that it's okay. Life isn't that easy. It's never been, and it never will be, but it's okay. And as soon as we get more voices, then you get a crowd of voices, and people will start following in that direction instead of being pulled backwards. Next is, I like to see the chart of veterans. I giggle because when I was in Normandy, you had World War II veterans, which you could tell now they're older and not as mobile. But then you see the Vietnam area that has the hat. What says I'm a veteran in this generation? Because I think we're trying to hide it sometimes, right? You got a beard, I got a beard. I'm not, you got the Rambo loner on one side. What is this identity of a veteran? So if you would ask your aunt or somebody on the street and you would have 3 pictures, you know what I mean? What is going to become our identity? And do we own that identity? So it's our time for our generation to own our identity of what kind of veteran we are. Are we the homeless veteran generation? Are we the PTSD generation? You know what I mean? Where is the identity that we should own and inspire to be? That's all.
I'm speechless. So.
I wanted to just cut. For me, like the veteran that I want to be known as. I always think of the thing, and I didn't want to get it right. I actually don't, because I am not. Unless I write it down, it's documented. So I wanted to look it up. That's what I was doing over here. But when you were saying that, like, what should we be known as? It actually goes back, and it reminds me of like. I don't usually do that. I don't do this a lot. But it reminds me of a scripture, right, where it says they will know you by your love. Right? That's how they'll know you're his disciple, right? By the love. And I think for me, what I want as a veteran to be known by is I empower my community through action. I think that's so great way for, at least for me as a veteran, because that's what the sole reason I went, right? The sole reason really I joined was like to do something bigger. And then what I learned is like it's about protect. Like I remember once I came home to the neighborhood and someone told me that I don't know who it was, but someone said, yeah, he's coming back from the Marines. And I live in a hard neighborhood. And I was like, oh man, he's not even fighting for the neighborhood. And then like 3 guys were like, what are you talking about? That dude's doing this for all the neighborhoods. And I love that idea. That's what veterans are. We've come from all these communities and all these neighborhoods. And our goal should be, we are the communities. This is what we are. Anyway, that's just my kind of, you got me kind of like excited. So
Annette, it's been 2 guys talking. I'd like to hear the lady's voice in all of this. You're absorbing this.
So I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you both, and you had touched on some things that Joe has been that that person that has said, okay, it's going to be okay. He sends me, he'll send me some things on Instagram, some quotes. He sends a message every now and then. And it's funny how we don't have to talk every day, although we kind of do, but there's just, you just know by looking at that person that you're not okay. So I'm going to send you something to make you okay.
Yeah.
And then there was another thing that you talked about, community. So there's always been, and I could be wrong, but what I have seen, there's always been a stigma around VFWs. Okay. When I moved back here to the Fort Hood area, I was like, I'm not joining the VFW because they're always smoking, they're always drinking, and I don't fit in. Like, where am I going to fit in? Then I had an opportunity a year ago where my former boss, who still lives here, he says, hey, this person, this Marine vet, she's like 4 foot tall, badass. This Marine vet, she wants to start a post. And I think you should be a part of it. I'm not in the same area. I'm 20 minutes from there. And I said, you know what? Let me go see what this is about. And I heard her speak, and I heard her passion, and I heard why she wanted to do it. And I said, I want in. We have created, we wanted to change the narrative. Although we don't have a brick and mortar for people to come in, we do have a place where we gather, and it's owned by an Air Force vet. It's a brewery. So we drink, but we don't. So we changed the environment. But what I'm trying to say is I decided that I need to give it a try because there's still something that I was missing. And so I helped start this VFW from the ground up, and man, has it changed me. It's changed me because we celebrate the small things like you had talked about. We celebrate D-Day. We celebrate the birthday. We celebrate things that I have forgotten about since I retired 8 years ago. And so when I go to these things and we immerse ourselves into the community, and people are like, I didn't know there was a post here. How do I join? That's where I'm like, this is what I needed. And so I, just from my perspective, I'm glad I joined. I'm glad I started up. I'm glad that we're changing the narrative and we're bringing people in that didn't realize. I mean, we have people that are leaving their post to come to our post. They want to transfer because they want to be a part of it. And that's what I think I needed, was that other community. But
to reconnect again, right?
Yeah, to reconnect again, because I do a lot of work from these walls. I'm in the mental health space, so I share my story, but I forget who I am as well, that I am a veteran, that I did retire, that I do these things. But starting this magazine, starting this podcast, doing what we do is to reconnect again. But then this is a whole other level because I'm actually out in the community doing things that I don't get to do from behind the screen. So it's
First of all, you mentioned a VFW. I think we all realize the VFW business model is off and it's not adaptive. And adaptive, it could be a virtual VFW. And the what was it originally? It is because when you served, the whole community left together, and whatever brigade, they all came home together. So they needed that central spot. And number two, I think that some of the benefits of VA probably aren't this generation's needs, sort of like discount alcohol and all this other stuff, even though I'm in the space and the physical space, you can do it mobile. You can go to this place. You can go to that place. You can be a running virtual VFW. So somebody needs to be creative in recreating that, but get the benefits of a structured 501, organization that gives you some capabilities. Number two is how to reach backwards to old friends and reconnect, right? We've built these bubbles on social media, and it's almost like looking for old high school girlfriends and boyfriends now. How do you kind of, recreate these unit legacies and connect that way just to see how each other's doing? Finally, though, are we smart enough to help others faster through transition? So say you find a friend and they aren't as successful in relationships. They're not as successful in their, you know what I mean? And are we aware enough and have the instant access to point them for a faster recovery,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as soon as we do, this country benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's in nobody's benefit to let a generation linger in dust and shades of gray, especially when we have the resources this country has. On the other hand, is now that you're all meeting with each other and doing good and maybe going to the 4th of July parade or doing whatever, how do you take that juggernaut of patriotism and move it forward,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And be a leader in the community for things that are important to your collective. So lots of things to do. This generation has many things to do. We
Yeah.
did, but as soon as we serve again, we have a lot of things to do. And as soon as we get ourselves and our people we served with reoriented into the future,
Yeah.
right? And this country is going to benefit from it, just like it did when we served after 9/11.
No, absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, we still have a lot to do.
That's okay. It's life always evolves until it's no longer there, right? The good thing about it, just like your sergeant told you, is like, hey, there's something to do. Go do it.
That's right.
Ah.
So I would like to know now what is one piece of advice you would like to give to a veteran who just feels like their story or their service and they have no place, they don't feel like they have a purpose anymore. I mean, I know we talked about community and all that, but there's still going to be that one person that's out there that's like, I got nothing left to give.
Well, first of all, don't lie in the trench. Sometimes when things are going your way, you need to just like World War I, hear the whistles and get up and charge. If you were a sergeant and you had privates sitting around and the artillery's coming in, you know what I mean? One word of motivation, snap them back into it. I think be a leader for somebody else as well, right? Sometimes you help yourself by helping others, so get involved that way. Also be angry that and now realize that you're angry and lost, right? So become self-determined to say, stop. I actually control my destiny. Okay, it's nobody else's fault anymore. There are resources, there are other people, there are aspects of whatever your religion is, spirituality. It doesn't matter. All those things are for you to reach upon and pull yourself up some, right? And if you're a good mentor, you should reach down and pull them up as well. So I try to tell everybody by my optimism and enthusiasm, hopefully that's infectious. If I got to get under your butt, right, and nudge you, I'll do the best that I can. But really, it's up to you, you know what I mean, to move to the sound. And that's all.
Yeah.
No one can make you move. You have to actually want to. You can give them all
sometimes you feel you can't, and there's ways, but also the second you realize it, right? It's like quicksand. Quit moving. Down, right?
Yeah.
Begin to work yourself out of the problem and upwards.
Yeah.
The country needs you.
Yeah.
It needs you to be a good veteran. It needs you to be a great citizen. It needs you again.
Yeah. Well, I sincerely thank you for your time and for your willingness to be on here.
And we didn't even really talk about Horse Soldier Bourbon.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly, which is the best part is you see our brand and our story is not a commercial for a thing.
Yeah.
Our story is about friends who served together, who took the opportunity to build something from nothing. And every day it's a knife fight on the battlefield of business. And I love it. If you miss the sounds of cannons and guns and helicopters, just imagine it in a different way in business, right? And go for it. And if you miss, get up and swing again. This is my 5th attempt at a business, right? I learned each and every time something new and better. So your first swing and miss you keep playing till the next inning. And eventually all of that knowledge and understanding will make you better. And one day you'll swing and hit the home run.
I really love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so well, now we have to talk. Before
No,
we
no.
before we
It's
go,
okay. We don't have to talk about Horse Soldier.
but I want
Bourbon.com, where you can buy delicious bourbon.
but I want people to know the baby bear, the mama bear, the papa bear.
We make something, we take a lot of pride in craftsmanship. We're winning because we decided to do something better. I think consumers are given the lowest quality and told it's good. When we started making something, we want to make something the best quality we could, at a price that kept us in business. We're not a publicly traded company. And I guarantee you, we have not made our best bourbon yet. And I suspect I'll make bourbon that I won't be alive when it finally pours. So that's the investment in future generations.
Wow.
You did have a 100-year plan.
Got a 100-year plan. I'm just 8 years into the first 25 years.
Well, I mean, that's I'm actually curious now, because you had a 100-year plan. Is there a 100-year-old bourbon that you guys go, man, we really want to see those guys?
No, bourbon in a barrel. So there's only really 2 ingredients. I like to joke and say there's 3. Mother Nature and Father Time. There's no additives in bourbon, where Scotch, you could add coloring, rum, you could add, there's all these other things you could put bad things into. Whereas bourbon, by law, hey, you make it with grains, you distill it to this level, you store it in new American white oak. The problem with Father Time is he's very greedy. And the very first year, your barrel evaporates 10%. So you're racing Father Time till your barrels eventually all evaporated out. So usually a good bourbon's 4 to 8 years. If you get 12, exceptional. Like you see Pappy Van Winkle, 22 years, there's a fraction left, right? And it truly is the art and science of something old timers couldn't explain. They didn't have chemistry degrees and all this other stuff. They just knew it was good. So why bourbon? Why not? That was what we chose. If you made car tires, I would love to buy your car tires. If you made something but it was crappy, I'm probably not going to buy it because it's crappy.
Yeah,
I've always said that. I think if you have the quality product and a great purpose behind it, the actual product is irrelevant. It could be anything. It could be whatever widget it is, as long as it's made the right way, and then as long as it's got a good purpose, people will resonate to it. People will adapt to it.
Yeah, I just like we did when we first went to Afghanistan, we got to go village to village and tell our story. So you remember this conversation you had with Will a year ago, right? Good, true stories endure. All we have to do is be good business stewards and always advance and grow forward. The only thing that can stop us is us. We've already hit COVID. We've already hit a downturn economy. We've hit these things, and we've been taken to the knees a few times and punches we weren't expecting. But you get back up and you go for it again, right? That's all. I think what you're doing is having conversations, and more people wish they were in a physical VFW having the same conversations. We're not. That's why now podcasts are resonating. Also, people that hear podcasts need to get over active listening and becoming participating members.
Yes.
Right? We need to get past the curious observer stage and into the committed outgoing person. And we kind of need a voice that is the Pied Piper in the veterans community that says, rally, get up, get after it, get on with it. And I'm always looking for that. And if I can encourage 10 other people to think like that as well, well, the armies begin with platoons, that begin with squads, that begins with fire teams. So that's all.
I had one last question because I'm
Do
really
it.
curious to know what is the Commander Select 5 and 6?
Yes. So when we first made a series, all these old warehouses we were into, as they're showing us what a 2-year-old would taste like once ours became 2, what a 4-year-old would taste like once ours became 4, what a 10-year-old would taste like. You finally get a relationship you've built. And so finally, people were asking us in the beginning, would you donate a bottle and do it for charity? Well, we only had so many bottles that we had to make and sell for profit, and we only had so many we could support with charities. So we designed a charity bottle called Commander Select. So basically, the commanders would go in there and they would select something we didn't make, and those distilleries would donate, the barrels, and we charged $595 for it. Why? Because whatever we made, we'd give, right? We couldn't give what the distributor or the store gave. Well, 595 was the team number, ODA 595. We just drew the number out of the air. Next is those bottles, now Commanders 5 and 6, some of those bottles go anywhere between $75,000 to $100,000 at auction. And they all go to different charities, right? So the Commander Select series is just like they say, we select, something very good. And then we only do so many. And what we make, we donate. And we'll go, if your nonprofit's having an event, right? And we show up, we'll help tell the story to raise as much money as it can for that community nonprofit. Now, I'm probably going to get 1,000 emails tomorrow. So we're getting a little thin, but how do you give back as a small business? And I want to end with this, if you don't mind.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
now when we talk to our suppliers, our bottle supplier, cork supplier, paper supplier, when I negotiate a contract, I try to get them to include at least 1, 2 to 3% of the value of the contract that year that they will give to a veterans charity. So I don't care if they charge me more, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to instill, even in my business partnerships, right? Things we care about. So once a year, I'll get together with each one of my suppliers and they'll say, okay, the calculation at the end is X dollar. Okay, where do you think it should go? I don't know. You tell me. No. Do you have any veterans in your organization? Why don't you see what I mean? So now I'm teaching them how to be considerate and ways they can develop their own corporate giving through different ways. And so I tell other veterans when they're negotiating their business, there's a point where you don't have to give all your money. You can encourage others to be a participant in the things you care about, because certainly people care about puppies and people care about cancer and or you know what I mean, all of this things that Americans are so generous. I feel it's our duty to also bring awareness to what we care about, and those are our veterans issues.
I love it. I love that.
Yep.
Thank you for explaining that. I was just looking, I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, what's that one? Where else can people buy it? Because I know it's here at our Class 6 on Fort Hood. They can go to
It's
your
everywhere
website.
and anywhere. You can go to the website, but then again, we're in Specs and Goody Goodies and Total Wines and ABC Liquors. We're in Moms and Pops. We just will start coming up in Hilton's. We're in Charlie State. In other words, we're in all 50 states now.
Oh my gosh.
So our bourbon brand, we're one of the fastest growing bourbon brands in the country.
Yeah.
And we're internationally through AFES and NextCom. And this weekend, our 250th anniversary bottle. Do we even have one sitting here? No. Is out into AFES. So how do you support us? We become the gift that friends give to each other when they're celebrating little victories. I just retired. You had a baby. So we're very fortunate we've built this kind of amongst all the services, this thing that says I served. Okay, here's one of our original bottles with a paper label.
Yeah.
What can you give somebody that says I served, right? or so this has kind of become that kind of 2 cigar, 2 whiskey glasses, 1 bottle. Let's get into a deep conversation gift.
So I'll tell you what. When I met Will, I purchased like 6 bottles, and I gave it to my son-in-law and his dad. They don't want to open it because it was signed. I don't want to.
We are in the consumption business, so
Yeah,
I call it a sip and sign. And we started doing this recently, where he goes, "Oh, I'll never open it." We're like, "Nope, can't buy it.
no.
I need you to buy 1 to drink and 1 to sign." Now, here's the secret. You ready? I did it to my kids. I drank it, then I put iced tea back in it, so it looks like it's full.
And then you put it in here. You put it in.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So now I'm gonna have to
Yes,
go
you
back
can
and just save the bottle, but drink it.
Water.
Yeah, so I'll slide mine over. Here we go. There's all my things. But we're very fortunate. We've kind of built through storytelling, just our story.
Yeah.
And we've built people that now send us when they're celebrating their little victories or their hard losses. And it's when I was just in Normandy and I went to Pointe du Hoc and I brought a bottle to take a photo op, an entire tour group stopped to come over and tell me that they love Horse Soldier and that's what they get as gifts. And that's when you know you're having some kind of connection, right? In the community that you love. And our brand is resonating. Now, if we could just tell the story to everybody else, why to make a decision for a purchase, that's the art of business.
Yeah. No, that's so awesome.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, I'm just gonna remind them to drink it now. So it's okay. It's gonna be okay.
You can sip it. We also address alcoholism in the veterans community too.
Right.
We wrote a paper that talks about how bartenders can be an early censor when veterans are in crisis. We have to address the big ugly rhino in the room.
Right.
And I tell people I drink to celebrate little victories, right? And I realize if I'm dark and clouded, I know that is a fire I don't need to touch. So how do we have a real conversation about, alcohol and what it can and can't do? And also, what I learned growing up about this was it was a special occasion. Right? Grandpa brought out the good stuff, or your dad brought out the good stuff. That's how I see when I have a sip now.
No, that's great. I do love that. Such an amazing story, and I'm just so amazed at how it all came together and how you just persevered and you just say, nope, this is what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen. And it's
give luck a chance.
Yes, absolutely. I hate to close this out because I know that we could talk for a very long time. But
I was going to have a question on what we just talked about. And do you guys have a site where we could say we can find where those charity auctions are? Is there a location that you guys have?
I don't know about the charity auctions because they happen all over the country. We did 1,000 events last year.
Oh my gosh.
So we don't have per se a published calendar of the events. You can watch on social media sometimes, but social media is very regulated when it comes to alcohol brands, as you could see. And so it's hard to say in a very socially connected world that we probably don't do enough to tell everybody what we're doing all the time.
Well, that's what
we're just doing it.
Yeah,
that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Right now, we're telling there's so many people we're going to tell them.
Yeah.
We just keep telling them.
Yeah.
No.
All right. We have to close it out. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Our journey, we were just met in the middle like ships in a voyage, and now we're going to our destinations.
Yes.
But what I always feel is that we're kind of aligned and we might go on a different boat, but we're going to port eventually in the same spot again further down.
Yes.
Well, I look forward to meeting you all someday in person, and I hope this podcast resonates. And I look forward to seeing you on the battlefield.
Absolutely. I really hope so too. We're gonna have to plan that. Where are you at again? What
Tampa,
state? Tampa.
Tampa,
Oh, okay.
Florida. You
Okay.
should come to our beautiful restaurant, the Urban Stillhouse.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Joe, we need to make a
Yes,
team trip. That'll be
there you
so
go.
great. Okay, for all of you guys watching or listening, we're going to have all of his links, his social media links in the show notes on the Spotify and everywhere you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube and on our website, veteranlifestylemagazine.com. But I thank you again for being here, for listening, and for watching. And I can't wait to meet you guys soon. So thank you so much.
Yay, America.
Yay.
Hey.
We'll play our outro.
So when I met Ryan Hunt and Annette Wittenberger, they kept talking about this amazing idea that they had and had previously been successful at, but it had been paused and they wanted to keep going with it. And they were talking about how veterans can learn resources about entrepreneurship, education, really connecting with our fellow veteran community and being successful. So obviously I wanted to be a part of that. And I am really excited to be a part of 2025 because we are going to have even more amazing speakers and resources.